Good morning.
Good morning.
Whoever you are and wherever you are on your journey, welcome to the First Congregational Church of Woodstock. If you are worshiping with us online, we invite you to find a couple of candles and join us as we light the candles of hope and peace, the first two Advent candles. Advent is a time of preparation and anticipation. We wait, we wonder. We prepare our homes and our hearts for a gift greater than all the presents under all the trees of the whole earth.
Light one candle for peace, one bright candle for peace. He brings peace to every heart. He comes. Light one candle for peace, one bright candle for peace. He brings peace to every heart. He comes.
Will you pray with me? O Holy One, we rekindle the candle of hope and light the candle of peace this morning, offering comfort to weary spirits. Even when conflict seems never-ending, relationships rocky, you invite us to make room in our hearts, minds, and lives for truth-telling in ways that bring real peace. Grant us comfort in our time of need and courage to seek and find your true peace. Amen. Today we wonder, where might you find peace? With whom or what might you seek to make peace?
For our opening song, hymn number 240, Hark the Herald Angels Sing.
The first reading is from the book of Malachi, chapter 3, verses 1 to 4. God says, I will send my messenger to prepare the way for me to come. Suddenly, the one you are looking for will come to his temple. The messenger of my promise, whom you want, will come. On the day the Lord comes, he will be like a furnace that purifies silver or like strong soap in a wash basin. No one will be able to stand up to him. God will purify the descendants of Levi and refine them like gold or silver. Then they will bring the proper offerings to God, and the offerings of the people will please God, just as they did in the past. And our second reading is from the book of Luke, chapter 1, verses 69 to 79, also from the Contemporary English Version. Long ago, the Lord promised by the words of God's holy prophets to save us from our enemies and from everyone who hates us. God would be kind to our people and keep God's sacred promise. God told our ancestor Abraham that God would rescue us from our enemies. Then we could serve God without fear by being holy and good as long as we live. You, my child, will be called a prophet of God in heaven above. You will go ahead of the Lord to get everything ready for him. You will tell his people that they can be saved when their sins are forgiven. God's love and kindness will shine upon us like the sun that rises in the sky. On us who live in the dark shadow of death, this light will shine to guide us into a life of peace. Please rise.
Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room. And heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing. No more let sins and sorrows grow, nor thorns infest the ground. He comes to make his blessings flow. For as the curse is found, for as the curse is found, for as the curse is found.
So words matter. Words matter. The words that we hear, the words from Scripture, but also the words that we use, the words that we hear deep down in our hearts and in our souls and in our heads. Maybe those tapes that continue to run over and over and over again. Words matter. I want to begin by listening to the words from Dr. Maya Angelou, who I think it was in 2005, during the lighting of the National Christmas Tree, she wrote a special poem, and it's called Amazing Peace. And I'm just going to read a couple of excerpts from that, because as far as I'm concerned, Maya Angelou is a poet. She is also a prophet of hope and a prophet of peace. Somebody who, in the way that she uses her words, reminds us of what it is that we ought to be all using our words to bring about in this world. Into this climate of fear and apprehension, Christmas enters, streaming lights of joy and ringing bells of hope, and singing carols of forgiveness high up in the bright air. Hope is born again in the faces of children. It rides on the shoulders of our aged as they walk into their sunsets. In our joy, we think we hear a whisper. At first, it's too soft, then only half heard. We listen carefully as it gathers strength. We hear a sweetness. The word is peace. It is loud now. It is louder than the explosion of bombs. We angels and mortals, believers and non-believers, look heavenward and speak the word aloud. Peace. We look at our world and speak the word aloud. Peace. We look at each other and then into ourselves, and we say without shyness or apology or hesitation, peace, my brother. Peace, my sister. Peace, my soul. I encourage you at some time to find her poem and read the fullness of her words, to meditate on these powerful images of this world moving from fear into hope in this time, in this season of Christmas, reclaiming for ourselves and for one another, for our fellow sisters and brothers throughout the entire family of humanity, this hopeful promise, yet unfilled, of peace in our world, and among one another, and in our hearts, and in our souls. It's why I believe the words that we use matter. Because those are the words that help to create the pictures that help us to find our way back into the dream, especially when that dream is lost. Think about it within your own life. I have to imagine that at some point, no matter how old or how young you may be, that somebody may have used some words in such a way that made you feel a little bit lighter, a little bit more joy-filled, a little bit happier about who you are and the dreams that you had yet to fulfill. I have to imagine that sometimes somebody did that. I also have to imagine that despite these beautiful words and the promise that we hear from Malachi and that we hear from Jesus and Simeon in the Gospel of Luke and the words that we hear from somebody like Dr. Maya Angelou, that there are also times, way too many times, maybe today or yesterday or last week, where the words that we hear in the world and on TV and on Facebook or whatever other news source that you may be using, or maybe just running around in the depths of your soul, are not so hopeful or joyful. They pull you back and pull you down. They touch a nerve or tap a memory that you thought that you had healed from. And all of a sudden you find yourself overwhelmed by this flood of anxiety and worry and all different kinds of feelings. It's why I believe the words we use matter. Whether intentional or unintentional, we have the power to lift people up or to hold people down. And when we come together on this journey and we encourage one another with the words that we share, we have the power to bring God's dream a little closer to our own lived reality. So I have a memory of a time when I learned that sometimes we get so preoccupied with the words that are going on that we get captivated by this fear that we actually can miss the signs of God's love or the signs of the things that we've been waiting for, even when they're right there in front of us. So I don't remember how old I was. I may have been 3 or 4 or 5, but I was young enough that I have this vague little bit of a memory, but I can't quite put my finger on it. But what I do remember is that at some point, it was this time of year, my mom and dad took myself and my older brother to one of the local department stores. It may have been Montgomery Ward's when Montgomery Ward's was more than just a building at a corner in downtown Putnam. It was actually a store. And stores, for those who don't remember, are the places that we used to go before there was the internet. Or it may have been Benny's. Or it could have been the Auburn Mall when it was bright and shiny and new. I don't remember, but what I do remember is that mom and dad took us to go and to stand in line, and we arrived just at the point when they were putting out the sign that said, "We're sorry, Santa's workshop is closed." Now, I was so young that all I can remember is that there were these big bright red letters, but I couldn't quite figure out the words. Mom told me what the sign read, but then Dad noticed that there was also this little clock that one of the elves was changing the hands, and it only indicated that Santa would be back in 15 minutes. So Santa was on a break, and so we decided to wait. And so the good news was we're right there at the front of the line. So we'd be first to go and see Santa. Well, I don't know if you can tell where this story is going, but Mom and Dad, I think, were young enough as parents that they didn't realize that 15 minutes may have been a short time on the clock, but for parents at a mall at Christmas time, it can be an eternity. And so we stood there and we probably behaved for, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 minutes. But my brother and myself, being who we were at the age that we were, words just started to pass between us. I have no idea what it was about. Can't remember that. I just have this memory. And the words passed. And you can imagine how this works. And this is what happens in our life. This is what happens in the world. Between us as individuals in our relationships, I think it happens through peoples and societies. Something small and insignificant happens and somebody says something and it lands just right or really kind of wrong and it hurts. And so what do? We want to say something because we don't want to let them have the last word. And it escalates and the words get meaner and meaner. Louder and louder still. My mom and dad, they did their best to try to intervene. And eventually we quieted down, again, maybe for a minute or two. And then silently, one nudged the other, and I don't know, maybe I nudged or pushed back. I can't even remember. I mean, maybe what it was we were both trying to jockey for position so that we could be the first to go and see Santa and maybe rat the other out. I don't remember. But the nudges and the pushes ultimately led to me falling backward. And as I fell down, I fell right at the foot of a young little girl who was right behind us. And she gave me her hand to help to lift me up. And as she did, and I stood up, she drew really close to my face, put her finger over her mouth, and she said, "Shh." My brother and I looked at one another, and I think that what we wanted to do was say, like, butt out. But there she was, these big eyes. It was like her hand was like holding all of herself in, and her eyes were almost exploding as her finger pointed up and outward. Shh, she said. The role of the prophet like Malachi is to use words in order to remind us when we have lost our way. When we are walking further and further without even realizing it away from God's dream for us. To give us hope when it feels hopeless. And to help us remember and find our way back on the way to God's good news story. And so I look beyond her little finger, down the line of now all of the little children and the parents who are staring our way as my brother and I kind of tussle and jockey for position. And I follow their eyes all the way down that line and to the little girl's finger. And what I finally realize is that she's not pointing or she's not using her finger so much as the sign to shh and be quiet. She's actually trying to get us to focus a little beyond ourselves. And so my brother and I, we finally turn around. And what we notice is that little sign, that red sign, has been moved away. And the elves have now made all things ready. The bright lights are on, and there are these little rainbow prisms that are dancing on the dark wall behind Santa's throne, where he has sat down, is now waiting to greet myself and my brother. And this is what happens. We get so drawn in by fear, by anger, by trying to outdo one another, by the words we use to push and hold one another down, that sometimes we can't even recognize the sign when the one we've been waiting for is right there around us. I don't think that's true just about a department store Santa. I think that is true in the world right now. The signs of God's love are here, right here, all around us. The signs to remind us to find our way back to the way of hope and joy and peace and love are all around us, and yet we get so distracted by the words that we use and the words that we hear, by the memories that are triggering us to get all overwhelmed by our fears. Listen to the words that Simeon says when he finally meets this infant child, John, who is Jesus' cousin. It's like he's been waiting an entire lifetime for this sign of God's hope to come into his life. He says, "You, child, will be a prophet of the Most High God. You will go before him in order to prepare a way." I have to believe that each and every one of us have been born for the same kind of purpose. For us to use our presence, our words as poets and prophets in order to create the way and to go before and prepare the way for God's love to yet be born in this hurting, hungry, hopeful world. What would it be like if all of those tapes that are running around in your side, all of the things that are giving and creating this atmosphere of fear, if they were overwhelmed and washed away because the words that Simeon says to John that day are the words that you claim for yourself? You, child, have been born and are created to be a prophet of the Most High God. What would it be like if you owned that as the truth of your own story? If the words that you said were poetic and prophetic in order to call about and bring us one step closer to God's dream for your life and for humanity and God's love to be born among us still. How much richer, more hopeful, more loving would your life be? Would your relationships be? Would this world be if we could claim that as our own promise? I'm going to ask you right now. Close your eyes if you have to. But listen deeply, and I want you to repeat after me. Just like the children helped me with that prayer, I want you to repeat after me these words. Only I'm going to change them ever so slightly, because I want you to say I instead of you. I want you to claim this promise because I believe this is the promise. If you believe that you are a child of the living God, if you believe that God created you for a particular purpose, can we not believe that that purpose is for us to use our presence, our words, our hopes, our loves, our joys, even our concerns, our questions, our doubts, and our hurts in order to make this world a little bit more loving, a little bit more helpful, a little bit more hopeful? Isn't this the time that we're in the whole purpose of this season? Please, if you believe that you are a child of the living God, repeat these words after me. Don't just say them. Say them deeply, like you believe them right down in the depths of your soul. And I believe that everything from this moment forward will be different in the way that you view yourself and you feel and experience the world. I am a child of the living God. I will be called a prophet of God in heaven above. I will go ahead of the Lord to get everything ready. I will tell the people that we are freed from fear, loved for who we are, and forgiven from our mistakes and our mess-ups. We are freed, loved, and forgiven. Even me. God's love and kindness is shining upon me and on all of us. Everyone in the world. Together. Like the sun that rises in the sky. Even as we live in the shadows of uncertainty. grief, loss, and fear, God's light will shine and guide us into a life of peace. May that be a vision for your life. May those words help you to use your words in your life in order to be and bring about the poetry and the prophecy of God's love pouring out and being born among us still. May it be so in this season and forever. Amen. My friends, in this season, may you find ways, small and big, to be the prophets and the poets of peace and love and joy and hope. To open your eyes and see the signs that are all around you of the one that we've been waiting for, the Prince of Peace, the wonderful Counselor, the one who brings us the news of the way of love, the one who is the God of love, is already right here, living within and all around you. Let us go and bring that good news of hope and love and joy into the world and be the church. Thanks be to God.